The beginning of the century was a golden period for Portuguese football. Portugal was set to host Euro 2004. They were enjoying the peak of their golden generation, the league was unpredictable, and to top it all off, Porto was proudly representing the country with 2 consecutive European triumphs. However, 2004 truly marked the pinnacle of that era, and from that point onward, many questions arose regarding the future of football in the country. Porto lost Mourinho and Deco, Euro 2004 came and went, and the only thing it left behind for those host cities was massive debt. The shakeup was real, and there's no better example than that than the 2004-05 season. That year, the madness was on another level. 5 teams were fighting for the title almost until the end, there were underdog winners in the cup, unlikely stars emerged, and there was a growing sense that the football pyramid had been turned upside down. In this video, I'm going to take you on a trip back in time to a simpler era and show you why people are still talking about 2004-05 even 20 years later. But first, and as usual, let me give you some context. Despite the anxiety felt by Porto fans after a large part of the structure that took them to the top of Europe left, there was still a certain air of invincibility. I mean, in the Mourinho era, not only did the Dragons win everything, but no one even came close to stopping them in the league. However, Pinto da Costa made one of the most bizarre decisions of his entire reign and appointed Luigi Del Neri. The experienced Italian coach thought Porto would fall behind if they stuck with Mourinho's ideas and believed the way forward was to adopt the 4-2-4 as the base tactic. Yeah, except he got fired even before the presentation match. Apparently, Del Neri had put key players from the previous season like Pedro Emanuel, Benny McCarthy and Carlos Alberto on the transfer list, and that did not go down well at the club. On top of that, Pinto da Costa had zero faith in Del Neri's game model and even went out of his way to sign attacking midfielder and Santos wonderkid Diego Ribas, exactly the kind of player who didn't fit Del Neri's system at all. The final straw? Del Neri missed a training session after spending 2 days off in Italy. And that's how the story goes, the biggest casting mistake in Pinto da Costa's reign. Although, it's not like his replacement did much better. To be fair, Victor Fernandes took over a squad already picked apart by Europe's giants and had no say in the new signings. On the flip side, it was a Spaniard who greenlit the departure of left-back Rosato, a dreadful decision in hindsight as Nuno Valente would suffer a serious knee injury not long after. Also, Fernandes just didn't have the balls to handle a volatile Porto dressing room where the veterans had more ego than output, the Brazilians cared more about partying than being on time, and 3 of the 4 major signings completely flopped. 6 months later, the Spaniard left Portugal, never to return. In came José Coceiro, fresh off a great run with Vitória de Setúbal. He managed to hang in there until the end of the season and incredibly kept Porto in a thrilling title race that I'll talk about later in the video. As for Mfica, they were coming off 10 straight seasons without winning the league, with no real reason to believe 2005 would be the year that drought would end. During that time, 11 coaches and 4 presidents passed through the club. And in 2001, they even hit rock bottom with their worst finish ever, a miserable 6th place. This time, with Luís Filipe Vieira as president, Mfica brought in Giovanni Trapattoni to lead the squad. But despite the Italians' experience and success, there wasn't much reason for optimism. The squad wasn't that strong, and the signings they managed were all low-cost options. Most had little impact. Honestly, only King and Manuel dos Santos could be considered successful transfers that year. Still, there were glimmers of hope. Simão Sabrosa was playing just as brilliantly as he was playing with his best friends and wife's emotions, and after beating Mourinho's Porto in the previous season's cup final, who knows, maybe Benfica would finally give their fans something to cheer about. Sporting, on the other hand, was entering a new era in 2004. Veterans Paulo Bento, Rui Bento and João Vieira Pinto left the club, but Sporting didn't break the bank to replace them. The standout signings were left-back Rogério, Chilean striker Pinilla, Cameroonian winger Douala and the returning Hugo Viana. It was a modest squad, but Sporting fans were hopeful that the new Mourinho José Peseiro could turn it into gold. But before I tell you how the league played out, it's worth highlighting a few other teams. First, Sporting Clube Braga, who had a great 03-04 season under Jesualdo Ferreira. Second, Nacional, who qualified for Europe for the first time in their history after finishing 4th, and still managed to keep many key players like Adriano and Avalos. And finally, two teams returning to the top flight after more than 10 years, Estoril and Penafiel. Both were labeled underdogs and total wildcards in a relegation battle that promised to be electrifying. With all that said, the ball started rolling, and look, I know I hype everything. I know I often say the title race was crazy, but what the fuck do you want me to say about a league where the gap between 1st and 5th at the halfway point was just one single point? Sporting was top, despite the terrible start that saw them hovering above the relegation zone. Also, Marítimo Rio Ave and Vitória Setúbal could technically claim to still be in the title fight, as they were less than 10 points away from the top. It was a surreal first half of the season, the big three swinging between brilliance and disaster, and the best part, it wasn't just a slow start from the top clubs. With 10 matches left, the league was still wide open. Sporting had slipped off the podium again, Porto under Coceiro was leading the pack, Braga and Boa Vista still dream of a surprise title, and Vitória Guimarães, led by our very own master philosopher Manuel Machado, was charging up the table like a freight train. But the real main event, the true climax of the season, came with 5 matches left. At this point, there were realistically 4 teams in the title fight: Mfica, Sporting, Porto and Braga. Of those, Sporting was on absolute fire. 2 months from the end of this chaotic season, the Lions reached a level of consistency no one else had managed. They beat both Porto and Boa Vista in back-to-back games that, in case they lost, they would probably be out of the title race, and even with a far more packed schedule than their rivals, they kept advancing in the UEFA Cup, gaining massive momentum. First came the dramatic comeback against Newcastle at Alvalade, then a wild second leg in the Netherlands where Miguel Garcia sealed the deal in the 120th minute. In the league, everything was lining up perfectly. With just 2 matches to go, Porto drew with Moreirense and seemed out of the race, while Benfica inexplicably lost to Penafiel. It was all in Sporting's hands. A historic double was just around the corner. They just needed a draw against Benfica, beat Nacional and then defeat CSKA Moscow in the UEFA Cup final to be played at their own stadium. But all that luck Sporting had suddenly turned into a cursed luck worthy of your worst dreams. Almost a year after his infamous blunder in the Euro 2004 final, Ricardo misjudged the cross in the virtual final between Benfica and Sporting, and Luizão rose above everyone to punish him. Sure, many claim the referee favored Benfica, and I get it. But the truth is, Sporting played for the draw, and in the end, they paid the price. 4 days later, the Lions took another punch to the gut, losing the UEFA Cup to the modest CSKA despite leading at halftime. And to make matters worse, they didn't even manage to hold on to second place after a 4-2 home defeat to Nacional. And who benefited from all of this? FC Porto. In the middle of one of their most ridiculous seasons in recent memory, they somehow grabbed second place, despite dropping points in after games and scoring just 39 goals in 34 matches. Many say this past season was the worst of the century, but as I've shown in another video, 2004-05 was way worse in every way. Worse planning, equally terrible football and far fewer points. Still, I get it. Time heals and makes us forget. In the end, it was Benfica who had the last laugh. Despite a far from brilliant season, Trapattoni's wisdom and experience, mirrored on the pitch by Simon's magic, made the difference. In the final match, fittingly, a draw was enough for Benfica to seal the title, as neither Porto nor Sporting managed to win their last games. After 11 long years, the party was once again red. For me, someone was still floating around in my dad's balls in the 90s, it's hard to believe Benfica went that long without a title. But as Luís Filipe Vieira said amid the celebrations, this win may have come too soon. Don't get me wrong, it's unfair to downplay a title, but just compare the 2004-05 table to 2024-25 and it's clear, 20 years ago, no one truly deserved to be champion. I mean, what can you say about a title winner with a worse record than this year's 4th place? And the truth is, the next 4 seasons only prove my point. What remains is a bizarre championship with the title up for grabs for most of the year. It's the year of Sporting's almost, Porto's horrible planning, Mfica's team full of streets won't forget type of players, Manuel Machado's rise, and Braga's growth right before our eyes. It was the year Penafiel miraculously wasn't shit because of Wesley and Vitoria's cup glory. And individually, we have to mention Ricardo Quaresma, who rediscovered his love for football at the Dragão after a shaky career start. The goals of our Levzinho Edson and the emergence of a new national prodigy who was still going strong 20 years later, the mighty little João Moutinho. 2004-05 was a season that, as we say in Portuguese, was do caralho. So, if you have memories from that year, share them below. I'd love to hear your take since I only started following football the year after and have zero recollection of this season. But if you're younger than me and want to learn more about Portuguese football, you're in the right place. Here at Throne FC, you'll find videos about the past, present and future of Portuguese football, like this one about the 2005-06 season. I bet you're curious to know what happened next, after this wild and chaotic season. Did Porto bounce back? Did Sporting collapse for good? Find out in this video. I'll see you there.